Hey guys, Jeremy here, welcome back. Today is the day I have finally caught up entirely 100% with all the knife orders that I've had outstanding. So that is a really great feeling. We're gonna move on to some shop upgrades. Namely, the first thing we're gonna do is give this sucker a VFD. So what I've gotta do is take it all apart. I'm gonna take off this drive shaft assembly and I'm gonna come up with a mount so that I can mount my my motor directly to the frame here. I'll eliminate a belt drive, should make it much smoother. Also, one thing I've heard that you need to do is upgrade the size of the wheel. So I purchased a 6-inch drive wheel that goes directly onto my motor right here. So that should help things out. So first order of business, I need to go ahead and disassemble my belt grinder, take it all apart, and start mocking it up. It's gonna be a bit of a process, but I'm really excited to get on this. Alright, so taking a quick look at this, obviously I'm going to be removing this portion right here. My concern with doing that is that I'm sure that this bracket here, it's tapped and countersunk, and so it's actually bolted on the bottom here as well. There's 2 bolts in here, and I'm thinking that probably adds a lot of rigidity this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off these bearings, I'm going to flip these brackets around to this side, and so I'll use these 2 holes that are tapped in there, and then I'll just drill 2 new holes for the bottom, so I can still get that little brace, one here. Actually, I probably only need 1 on this side, but I'll put 1 here too, and I think it'll clear this lever right here. Those brackets are 5 inches long, and I think 5 inches comes to about right here. I think it's still gonna work. If not, I might leave this side off, and then I'll end up having just 1 bracket right here, and that should just clear underneath of this. That way, I'll still maintain the structural integrity of this frame. And when you think about it, if you just had this support and this support, you know, there's not a whole lot keeping it from going this way. And so I just think it's probably wise to switch this over to this side. That way I've still got these plates, I'm not gonna modify them. I was originally thinking about cutting these out, but if I ever wanted to convert it back to a drive with a belt, not that I ever would, but it's just nice not to have to remake these plates. So I'm just gonna flip these around and drill and tap. So to do that, I'm gonna have to take this whole thing apart, but I think this is the right way to go. These things. Purely out of curiosity, just so I have a bit of an idea what I'm up against. I want to set the motor here. Okay, definitely going to need to extend the frame, the base plate, unless I've got a piece of 1/2-inch plate that was from a welding table. And I'm almost wondering if I've got long enough to just make an entirely new base plate. It's a lot of work, but if it's nice and flat, that might be the better way, because I can just keep this width all the way down. I could use this as a template, drill my holes, countersink them all this stuff will line up just as it should, and then I'll have it integrated as a solid, like a 1-piece unit. So, I'm gonna take this apart. Let me just get a quick measurement here, what I need. So I would need about 2 feet. So if my piece of plate out in a sea can is 2 feet long, I think this will work. I think so, I got a good feeling. While we're in the middle of this, let's just finish this off. You know, one question I get asked a lot is, would you buy a KMG again? The answer is absolutely. I also get asked quite a bit, do you think it's worth making your own or buying one? And that's a tough one. That kind of depends on your situation. I mean, if you've got the skills and the tools, well, obviously you can save yourself a decent chunk of cash by building your own. My first grinder was a homemade grinder. That was a lot different than this one. And that one I used a treadmill motor for because it was a DC drive, so a variable speed with a treadmill controller. But, you know, I did end up buying a KMG, and not for 1 second have I ever regretted that decision. Okay, now I feel better about popping this apart. Let me just label these back. Well, I guess it's easy to tell. Don't need to label them, they're different sizes, duh. Okay. The quality of these grinders is really, really good. I mean, everything's fit up very nicely. When they set out to build these, they definitely do it. They do it right. And when you start taking it apart, that just becomes more evident. Okay, so there's our base plate. There we go. So, I need a piece of steel, 1/2 inch plate, that's 8 inches by 24 inches is what we figured. Let's go see what we got. Oh yeah, check out. New whip. Let's go see if I have something that will work. Oh, I forgot my tape measure. Oh, I know where there is one. I don't know why it's there, but I did know that it was there. More bicycle projects. Oh, that looks like a 24 incher all the way. Oh yeah. Almost 3 feet. All we need is 8 inches. We are golden. Oh man, this is perfect. I'm gonna use that section right there because it's straight edge. But I'm gonna have to do some major cutting. And I do not have the right discs. So that piece of steel is gonna work, but I do not have like a big 9-inch cutoff wheel. So I'm gonna have to whip to town, grab some big cutting wheels, mark out some nice straight lines, and then we'll go ahead and chop that sucker up. But that's exciting. I think that is a far superior way to go. Just make a brand new base plate for it. With that little chunk of steel there. Like I said, that was an old welding table, and I've been using that. So many scraps of that. My horizontal belt grinder is made out of that table. Somebody's getting rid of it, and they're like, hey, do you want this table? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I think we're pretty much gonna use the rest of it up on this little project. All right, so we went to town. I got some grinding discs as well. We had a little bit of a cross-country ski session. That's why I kind of have some raccoon eyes. So I did get some zip discs. I got some 7-inchers, some Walter brand, the best ones, and then also some 5-inchers. Now, here's the deal. Guess how much these cost? 5 7-inch cutoff discs and 5 5-inch cutoff discs. 66 bucks. That seems outrageous. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and mark out the template, and I left my grinder up in the shipping container, so I'm gonna go grab that right now. All right, so that was a good grinding session. We got our plate cut out. Got a pretty nice straight cut, like a ridiculously straight cut with that disc. You know, I have spent literally hundreds of hours running a grinder. I'm not talking hundreds of hours of fabrication time, actually trigger on, grinder, grinding, hundreds of hours of my lifetime. And sometimes a lot of that was like really, it was like grunt work, like the dirty work nobody else wanted to do, so I had to do it. But times like this, it really pays off, because when you can get a nice straight, just, man, this side has been water jet or plasma cut or something. This is the side that I cut, and it is ridiculously straight. I would say it's probably within a 1/16 the whole way around. Next step, I'm gonna go ahead and all those holes that we transfer punch, the markings, I'm gonna go ahead and drill those. Also, once I get these holes drilled on my new plate, I'm going to take this and kind of flip it around, locate these two holes, and then I'll be able to mark these holes very accurately just using this. So I won't have to measure anything, just using my transfer punches again. It'll make more sense once we get, once I show it to you. Anyways, now, let's get 1, 2, 3, 4. Just gotta drill 4, well, we'll do those ones too. Let's drill some holes in our new base plate. All right, so essentially, this is the orientation that our grinder was. So this is where the bearings would be, and what I want to do is I want to move these blocks to this side, and so I'm just going to use these holes that I've drilled. And I've got 2 transfer punches. I have 2 transfer punch sets, so it's kind of handy, and I really just want to mirror this. So I want to flip this over this way. Line up that hole, and then I'm going to transfer these marks right here, and then this is where my new blocks will go. Okay, I'll drill those 2 out. All right, we'll drill out those extra holes, and now what I want to do is to figure out which holes need to be tapped. Sorry, countersunk. So this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I just like to circle them that way. I have a better idea what I'm doing. And let's go countersink these bad boys. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Yeah, so obviously my tooling arms are gonna have to be cut down a little bit. I'm not gonna have quite as much sticking out, but that's still plenty of, you know, for the work rest to go onto and stuff. So I'm probably gonna have to cut my work rest down a little bit as well. And then all these tooling arms, obviously depends. I mean, my flat platen goes this way a little bit farther. And then, you know, different wheels and stuff. I've also picked up, I've got a new 5-inch contact wheel. I'm gonna be running that. And then ones like this little one for my slack belt. Those will need longer bars. But essentially, I think I'm pretty much ready to go ahead and figure out where I'm gonna put the holes to mount the motor down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm probably just gonna drill and tap, looks like probably 5/16, I think. And I think that'll work for now. I'll probably put it right here and right here. That way, if I ever need be, or if I change the diameter of my drive wheel, I can bring it this way and still use the same holes in theory. And then, yeah, I really definitely need to cut these down because I don't want this banging into the motor all the time. So anyways, the next step of the process, I guess I've kind of roughly lined it up, but I'm just gonna take a straight edge here and I'll lock in my contact wheel. Save that with my foot. I'll lock in this bar here, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'll just use the edge of the contact wheel to line up my drive wheel. Something like that. Obviously the motor needs to go towards the level just a tiny bit, and then we can get a little finicky and and square it up a little more precise, get our tracking all just dialed in just right. But that will be the next step of this process. So let's get on it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using a transfer punch. It's a nice snug fit inside that slot. I'm actually just using it as a scribe. That'll make sure these holes are spaced properly. Alright, so we've got this thing mounted up. Looks pretty good. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to disassemble the whole thing again. I'm going to cut this off, so I'll mark some lines. Probably cut it right there. And then also what I'm going to do is I've got a big piece of hinge. I'm going to try mounting the hinge to this side of it. And that way I can actually flip this grinder horizontal. What I'll do is I'll have the bench it's going to sit on is going to end right here. This thing will flip over and I'll have a little standoff coming and I'll support it on this end when it's horizontal. I think that's going to work pretty good, but the next step of the process is build a bench. I've already gone ahead and taken my old grinder out, and this is where the bench will go. Just need to shuffle some stuff around and we'll get going on that. Alright, so we've got the bench installed. Next step in the process is I'm going to weld the hinge on. And that's a little bit scary. Make sure I get on the right side. Let's go on this side. Yeah. I did a little test fit and it fits up pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and weld her all up. Now obviously with this hinge, I'm going to have to space this up, but this is exactly 5/8 of an inch. So I think I'm going to take a piece of 5/8 OSB I've got left over from another project. And what I'll do is probably cut a strip of it like this. I'll just glue it to here. That way it'll be fully supported and it'll sit nice and flat. So, I think this is looking good. All right, we've pretty much got this project wrapped up for now. There's a couple things that are going to change, but let's just kind of walk through where we're at this point. So the reason I went with a wooden bench is because I wanted to try this out, and I've also designed this thing like with the hinge. Obviously it can go to a horizontal grinder, and I think this is a really slick option, but I wasn't sure about height, whether, you know, I wanted to give some height up here or there, because obviously they're not the same height when you flip them. They're fairly close actually, but I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted this set up, so I made a wooden bench. The idea being I can use it for several weeks, you know, make a couple of knives and see what I'd like to change, adjust, and tweak. And then once I know all that stuff, I'll go ahead and make a metal one. I'll weld it up out of steel tubing and make a proper heavy duty frame for it. But for now, this is gonna get us through. Also, what I've done is I've hooked up my KBAC, my VFD. I didn't film that because obviously it depends what you're using for a VFD, it's going to be different. These are really simple to hook up and install. The drive that I'm using is a KBAC 27, and that is rated for up to 2 horsepower. And the reason I wanted that is because I'm using a 1.5 horsepower ball door super efficiency motor, and this one is rated for 1760 RPM. That's one of the reasons why I went with a larger, a 6-inch drive wheel. If I just reused the drive wheel, the 4-inch that came with the grinder, I would lose out on some of that top end speed that's really handy for, you know, really aggressive material removal when you're using your really coarse belts and stuff. And then obviously with the VFDs, you can slow them down really as slow as you want to. So there's no need to have a really tiny wheel on there for lower speeds. Really, you're kind of making adjustments to compensate for the loss. You don't want to lose that top end speed that really allows you to hog material off really quickly. So all in all, I'm really happy with the way this thing's turned out. I haven't done any real grinding on it, I mean, other than a few tests here and there, but this thing runs so smooth. Let me show you how smoothly this thing runs. I don't have any, this is just a regular 3/8 lock washer. I don't have any change or coins with me. I know this is kind of the test, so there we go right there, and then turn it on. Oh, so that's at what's that, 20%? Look at that, full speed. That is impressive. Oh, I like that. Also, I'll show you how I have this wired up. So basically this is 110 volts. And we're coming from the outlet. I'm just coming to the little switch that I originally used for my on-off switch for my grinder. And that's running the power to the KBAC. And then obviously from there, we're going out to our motor. One thing to notice though, the drive wheel that comes with the KMG is a 3/4 inch shaft. And I ended up going for a 5/8 shaft. And then I had to specifically match up a 5/8 motor. So anyways, basically when you turn this thing on, you know, right now it's set to 0. It kind of has to do with a percentage of the max output. So, you know, kind of turn it on like that, and you can see when it's really low, it's kind of jerky. That's just the nature of the way electric motors work. But as soon as you get up to a little bit, like what are we at, about 10%? Once you get up to about 10%, it starts running smooth, and this is really slow. I mean, you can see how slow this is, right? And then we can crank this sucker right on up to our maximum speed. This thing runs much quieter than with the belt drive, and just as a point of reference, I'll show you what our maximum speed. I believe when I had my other grinder, I think it was like I don't know if it's 3,200 or 3,400 RPM, sorry, surface feet per minute. So 3,332 surface feet per minute. But let's check this out. Okay, so we are 2,937 surface feet per minute, so that's pretty good. I mean, like I said, I noticed that my old grinder was a little bit quicker, but this is still plenty quick enough. And then again, you know, when you can slow it down to like that slow, I mean, you'll never really need to run it this slow, but it's nice to have the option. A lot of people wonder why you might slow a grinder down this slow. Well, anytime you're doing things like woods or synthetic handle materials, and even some really fine grinding, it's nice not to have that instant reaction that you get from a really fast grinder. Obviously with the woods, you're gonna burn them. Synthetics, you burn them, they just they overheat and they actually burn right away. And it's a real problem when you got a grind that's really fast, but then at the same time, you know, if you're doing real fine tweaking, something really light, just feathering of a, you know, of a transition or a plunge line or something like that, it's nice to have the belt running a little bit slower so you can have a little bit more time to think about it, a little more forgiveness, and things don't happen instantly. Sometimes when you're just doing the fine tweaks of a knife, you want to kind of be able to just slowly work on it rather than just be like, bang, it's done. So that was the biggest reason I went with this. And then also it's going to be really nice to use this as a horizontal grinder. I'm gonna have to make some new tooling arms, work rests, so it'll come up in here. But really, like, this is gonna be so slick. I'm jacked. Obviously, I need to remount my VFD. Once I make my proper frame for this thing, I'm gonna bring this out a little closer so I'm not reaching over the grinder. But that's one of the reasons why I did my on-off switch right there. So if something goes wrong, I can just boom, hit that, and it'll kill the power to the VFD, which isn't the ideal way to shut it down, but that's for like an emergency type situation. I didn't put it right here because my dust collection has to go right there. Anyways, guys, I just want to share this little project with you, maybe give you some ideas, or, you know, if you're considering doing this, the KMG, you can most certainly hook it up to be a direct drive, and in my opinion, the best way to do it is with a solid single base plate. Make a new base plate on the bottom of it, and I'm just absolutely blown away by how, and I haven't even ground anything on this yet, and I can already tell that this is just such an improvement from my stock configuration of my KMG. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thank you guys so much for watching. Cheers.